Hello, this video is not sponsored. This Western freight train set has 1,524 pieces. It retails for $90 US, and I got mine for about 75 or so because they're always doing discounts on their own website and on Amazon. The set comes with some figures. I know most of my viewers don't care for them, but a handful do, so we'll look at those later. I'll also cover the water tower separately because it's a pretty substantial build. First, there are some overarching things to talk about, such as the size of this, which is over 28 inches long or about 73 centimeters. It fits on standard 6-stud wide gauge track and comes with the track that you see here, but most of the train itself is built to an 8-stud wide standard, which is not what I was expecting from looking at the pictures. I bought this because a lot of you viewers asked me to, but I didn't spend a lot of time really carefully looking into it before I made the purchase. See, I was expecting it to be the more common 6-wide scale. That changes a lot when it comes to perception of value. Instead, this one is scaled more like the 2019 Disney train from Lego. As a matter of fact, it's scaled too much like it. Twitch viewer and Discord member MasterBuilder183 took a very significant, close, deep look at the design of this part by part and found that significant portions of the bogies, the trucks, the undercarriage, all the stuff down here is directly based upon the Lego 2019 Disney train and station set locomotive design. Now, we are limited here in terms of the system, and because they went for a similar scale, you're going to see some overlap, or at least it's likely to see some overlap in designs. But these are just too close. Too many of the parts are exact down deep inside of there. The whole thing isn't. They made a lot of changes from there, but you can clearly see that they started from that existing design. That was a little bit disappointing to see because I know that this company has talented designers. They're able to do original work, and they definitely did push this farther forward. They made it much more advanced than the original design that they based it off, but they did, and I do want to just be very clear in calling that out. They did base this off somebody else's work. There are lights at the head and tail of the train. So you've got the main headlight here. There's a cabin and marker light on one side, and the firebox glows a continuous red. The passenger car has its own exterior marker light here, and then each of the interior compartments has its own light, and you can see those from the outside. You're not going to see those lights though when you take the roof off, because those lights are mounted to the roof, and there's a separatable contact electrical connector. So when you're looking inside with the roof off, you're not going to have the light, the benefit of the nice lights there. So that's something you just have to enjoy from the outside looking through the windows. Power is transferred from car to car via small, inobtrusive wires that go through the non-magnetic couplers. You can see one there. You can see one there. This can be disconnected, so you don't need to have the tender hooked up. You can end up using this locomotive and tender pair with other consists behind there. There's also a wire going forward to the cab, but ultimately your battery box is underneath the fake coal here. And this uses 3 AAA style batteries. They do give you accommodations to power this from USB, and it might be possible to find a pre-made USB battery pack, power pack that can fit in here, but the toughest thing is going to be fitting it with a USB-A connector at the end. Here's a quick peek at how some of this looks with the lights turned down. The stuff on the engine is pretty subtle, which honestly is realistic, I think. But as a result, it doesn't really jump off a table or a shelf on display. Unsurprisingly, the passenger car looks more interesting. That's because there's more light in there in the first place and more windows. The cargo compartment has a couple small windows from the front, but it's easiest to see from the sides through a door. From a practical perspective, the locomotive has some articulation, so it's able to negotiate curved track just fine, but the tender has 4 axles back to back, and those definitely get pinched in a minimum radius turn. So if you're going to be putting this onto a layout that has turns that are the standard super narrow radius, I would recommend taking at least one of these out, preferably 2 of them. You can space the outer ones a little bit closer so that it still doesn't look too weird, but that's just something that you will have to consider. This is with the couplers and everything, the whole thing is able to negotiate S-curves as well. It's a little difficult to see all the control details inside the cab, but they do have this section of the roof that can be lifted to give you a little bit of a peek in there. It's also important for access to get figures in there, which is a little bit tricky just because of how narrow this space is. A figure is able to stand in there. They have a couple of studs on the ground to hold their feet, but you are going to need to have one finger coming in from the back just to help stabilize it and get it into the right spot. Couple last notes about the locomotive and tender before we move on. Freight, just saying freight on the side is obviously very uninspired, but at least there's a little suggestion of wear in there. And these parts were pre-assembled onto a temporary plate before they're printed, so the prints are lined up. And the same thing goes for these on both sides. And at the back of the tender, there's the quick electrical disconnect, and this is the part on the other side. This flat car is very, very basic. The logs are pretty much tied together, so you can just take all that off as a single assembly. I do like the prints used at this end. There are actually prints on the other end as well, but they are so subtle, it's almost impossible to see them. It's like a gunmetal gray color on these inverted, also convex tiles. And there's the quick disconnect at the other end. The passenger car looks short because it is, well, partially because it's wide. Had this been made the same length, but 6 studs wide, it would look a lot more appropriate and realistic. But clearly they just didn't want to add more to the price of the set to make this even larger. They wanted to focus on freight, but also give you just a little suggestion of carrying some people and also some more important cargo around. As you'll see inside, the door here is able to simply slide back. It was the same thing on the other side. The doors at the ends are also able to be opened up from here. Again, printed. Sorry, doing this with one hand. There we go. From the front and from the back as well. And then you can take the whole roof off to really see inside. There are the 2 LEDs for illumination and the quick disconnect down here at this end, which just touches this plate. And this isn't really not a standard style of passenger carriage. It doesn't have a bunch of seats. It's more of a VIP transport lounge car. You've got just the one main area for basically one person to sit there, and they've got some of their personal possessions. Interesting print there on the top of the dresser unit. It's actually a folded newspaper. I've not seen that done before. And then you can see that there's some very important cargo being carried around, some very valuable cargo being carried around. And that's for the sake of doing some role play. You could get some bandits to stop the train. After all, we did see some dynamite on the tracks up ahead. So the idea is, there would be a typical Old West train heist. Like the main components of the train, this water tower is more significant than I expected in its overall size and also its complexity. Interestingly, these diagonal timbers are useful. They are structural. They actually help to hold the otherwise relatively thin and fragile structure together. And I appreciate just a little bit of engineering there because ultimately it's just intended to look good, but it's nice that it doesn't fall apart as you build it. You do have to have a little bit of care when doing that, but it all definitely works out. It doesn't waste too many pieces. It's a significant size of structure, but I'm happy with how it turned out and it doesn't feel bad. What I like here most definitely are the little barrel cacti at the base. Maybe the green color is a bit too bright and vibrant, but I appreciate the variation there, and you get one additional print here. Looking at the figures quickly, I apologize for always having to repeat all the information here, but anytime I don't repeat the information, viewers who haven't seen the other videos are left with the same questions. Same size as the minifigures that you're probably used to. Heads are compatible. Headgear is compatible. These are fully articulated. You can move the arms individually, the legs. There's a little bit of waist articulation. The hands can be rotated. The hands can hold anything bar or tile size. The heads, did I say the heads can be rotated as well? They're not able to make figures that look like this because the company that owns this design has a trademark on it and it's illegal to make things like this. So if you are looking only for this exact style, obviously these guys aren't it. Honestly, they give you more figures in this set than you can use with this set other than having some folks, just on the ground with not a lot of accommodation for passengers. You're probably going to have maybe 2 people, 3 at the most in that passenger section, 1 engineer, and that's about it. So everybody else has to be on the ground or just add them to your Western town if you're building one up. These are the leftover pieces. The blue ones are the previously mentioned sacrificial plates that were used for aligning tiles for printing across multiple of them. They always give you a bunch of extra hands. You can see a couple of their specialized parts here, including the nice stud piece, hollow stud without flange around the outside. This is a stud on both sides. This is one of their special channel plate pieces for allowing wires to pass by without being pinched. This piece here can also be used for the same purpose. And in this set, I got my first ever malformed FunWhole piece. First time I've gotten something that just wasn't right. From there, you can see that this just was was either a failed injection or it might have gone back into the machine or something like that. But I did want to point that out because it's literally the first time I've gotten a piece that's bad from them. This is their brick separator, and they also give you tweezers that have a nice round end that's safe for manipulating wires. And speaking of wires, they also give you the USB-A adapter, so you can use that for permanently powering any of your lighted stuff through their system. Again, the retail price of this was $90 US, but you should be able to get it for cheaper than that if you just look around and or are patient. You should be able to get it at least 15% off from what I've seen. Now that's for over 1,500 pieces with the light kit, of course. And I still can't get over how large it is, and that's just an expectation versus reality thing. It's always nice when it goes in that direction. I thought that I was going to be just kind of satisfied with the value here, but I ended up being impressed by it. So I'm still waiting for something from this company that will disappoint me from a value perspective. I guess some of their smallest sets have gotten close, but no, this one definitely has the value. It's really unfortunate about the situation with the locomotive, mostly because it's not a clone, it's not a direct copy, but enough sections of it are that it's distracting. And it just feels unnecessary. This company clearly has designers that know what they're doing. They've done plenty of fully original stuff just fine. And I think they just need to stick to doing 100% original things, because even if there's one major component of a build that is clearly copied from another company with, the assembly of it, it's still just, like I said, it's just going to be distracting. It's completely an unneeded, uncalled for diversion from the goods that the company can do and the value that they can provide and the quality that they can provide and everything. So I hope that they, this is not the newest set, not the oldest either, but I hope that they don't do that anymore at all, just so I don't have to talk about it. The set that it's inspired by, those components are inspired by, is long since discontinued. It is ultimately based on the same source material, so there will be some commonality, but come on. Yeah. Anyway, beyond that, I'm overall pretty happy with this. It's too bad that it's not easier to motorize it, but clearly they don't have any intentions of introducing a train motorization system as one of the products, the add-on products that they offer. So they just didn't even bother to care about that. And I completely understand that. So it's on us fans to figure out how we want to motorize this if we do want to. If you are looking for something that's easy to motorize, obviously, this is not the one for you. And that's fine. It's perfectly fine for things like that to exist on the market. And honestly, trains aren't big these days. And brick-built trains aren't big these days. They are niches. They're small niches. Most people who do get train sets are just going to be putting them on display. Something like this are just going to be putting them on display. So just having the compatibility with an existing track system, I think is enough. But if you need more than that, you're going to have to work for it. And you're going to have to add a bunch of your own pieces, and the value proposition is going to start to shift. But those are my overall thoughts on it. I hope that I've brought you some value here. If you have any interest in purchasing a thing, it doesn't necessarily need to be this, but any of the types of things that you see on this channel, and you'd like to support this channel and help me to be able to continue to bring you these independent reviews of things that I buy myself, you can help by using an affiliate link in the video description on any of my videos, but that's entirely up to you. I could get a small commission. It doesn't matter what it's on. I could get a small commission that just helps me to keep these lights on in this studio and keep me buying more stuff to give you more reviews. So, it's kind of like a cycle. Again, thank you. Appreciate your support, and I'll talk to you again soon.